Hey guys, welcome to Quinian's Budget Crafts. Let's build a floating obelisk thing. To start out with, I cut out some triangles and then beveled the bottom edge. And we'll just carve some details in there because plain triangle panels are kind of boring. All you gotta do is cut in there with your X-Acto knife at an angle, and then you should be able to pop that little piece out. I'm not cutting all the way through, but you could if you want to. Then just take the ball end of your pokey tool and flatten all the foam that's still left inside the hole. You could also use a Sharpie to just draw some stuff in there. That way it's not all the way through, it's just a little bit inset. The Sharpie will melt the foam here, so that'll make it go in pretty nice. For the middle piece, to put all the little panels on, I just cut out a little square of XPS and then split that in half. And then cut a little hole in the middle for you to get the hot wire through. Just thread the hot wire through it and go ahead and cut out a thing in the middle. It does actually need to be a lot straighter than I did it here, but I can clean that up with the X-Acto, so just remove a bulk of the material basically. At this point you can go ahead and coat your foam stuff with black and Mod Podge. If you want light to shine through the middle thingies that you cut out, the little symbols, don't put Mod Podge in there, otherwise it'll block it completely. So for the divider thingies between the panels where the light's going to be shining through, I wanted to go with green, so I got one of these dollar store document protector things. It's actually several layers of plastic. That one in the front that looks like it's dark green is not, it's like a smoky gray. And then the one in the back is actually 2 layers of plastic, and it diffuses the light pretty well. So just go ahead and put your ruler on there and cut out some strips if the kitty will let you. And that smoky gray one from the front could be useful for something, so go ahead and set that aside. You might use it for something. I need these 2 middle pieces to stay a certain distance apart so that the light will shine through there. So I just put a couple little spacer blocks in there. Those are just pieces of the ready board foam core. Now we can take the double layer of plastic from the document protector and measure everything out, crease it where you need to. Just got to get it to fit all the way in there. And if you put the light behind it, that's exactly what we want. And then we just go ahead and start putting the panels on at an angle. You're going to need some strips for your panel, so go ahead and cut out a few of those. Because of the angles and stuff though, they're not actually going to fit right. So what you need to do is go ahead and bend them in half so that you get the nice little crease, and then trim that shape into sort of like a diamond sort of thing. You'll see. Just trim them basically into this shape here. Then it should fit in between your panels. It's kind of tricky getting these to line up in there and not have gaps and have the same distance between each panel and all that stuff. You just have to play with it for a little bit to get it to work. I'll go ahead and throw a little bit of hot glue in there to make it stay once you figure it out. And the hot glue will give you a couple seconds to adjust it too. And then repeat that process all the way around. I decided I didn't like the way the end of it was forming together, so I just went ahead and cut that off nice and flat, and then made a little cone piece out of a piece of XPS and used some files on it to get the shape I want, and hot glued that in place on the bottom, or top, or however you want to look at it. Give it a little test with the lights. That looks pretty good. It's kind of hard to see with the light on. There we go. That's a whole lot brighter, showing up on camera than it is in person, but that's the general idea. Go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other side, except don't put all of your panels on. Leave one panel off, and then leave one of the green things off, like this here. That way you have room to get the lights in there. So this light pack is real heavy with these 2 AA's, and that battery box there is real big. But if you use one of these little CR32s, that'll work just fine. It's maybe a little bit dimmer, but it does work, so that's what we're going to go with. Just go ahead and pop all of your parts out of this battery box, or cut the wires, whichever you prefer. I actually want to keep the switch, so I'm going to go ahead and pull everything out of here. Just go ahead and solder everything up. Should be simple enough to do. There's already solder on the connections. Then you can take your light bundle and just stuff it straight down into the middle of the thing. Don't need to run them or glue them or anything. Just stuff it right in there. My original plan was to have the switch and the battery on a removable panel. That didn't work out because this thing is too small, because I'm building this for the build contest and there's a size limit. But I mean, if that's the case and you don't have enough room, it's fine. Just go ahead and stuff everything in there. You can still do the removable panel if you want. I end up cutting a little slot to put the switch on the side. Let's get an idea of what this looks like before we start gluing up more things. That looks pretty good. Always check your electrical connections as you go. You don't want to get everything glued together and be like, oh man, and have to take it all apart. For the base of it, I just cut out a little 4x4 square. I'm not real sure how thick that is. I was trying to keep it more or less what other tile systems thickness would be. That way it fits in with everybody else's stuff. But all you really got to do here is coat the whole thing in some Eileen's Tacky or Mod Podge or Elmer's, whatever kind of glue you like, and then stick a bunch of bricks to it. Then go ahead and coat that whole thing in Mod Podge and black. For the paint job on both of these, I did my basic stone. I'm going to do a side set of videos on real basic stuff. It's just shades of gray. And because I want this to be able to fit in with desert terrain and anything else, I'm not going to put any green flocking. I am going to use the airbrush, though, to put a little bit of tan patchwork here and there. You could, of course, just do this with dry brushing. That would be totally fine, too. I just have the airbrush, and it's fun to play with. That little notch in there is where the switch sits. It's kind of hard to get to. You do have to use like a pen or a pencil or something to actually get in there. But, I mean, it's not that bad. That's what it looks like, all lit up and sealed up and all that stuff. In order to have something to mount your chains to make this look like it's floating chain down, you're going to need some little panels to go on the corners. Just take a little bit of cereal box cardboard, fold it in half, and stab a hole through it. Then these rings that came with the chain are a pretty good size already. You can just go ahead and poke those through your hole. And slide the ring closure around to the back side. I mean, you don't have to, it just looks a little nicer. These things I will paint with some metal silver stuff and a little bit of copper to make it look rusted. That'll also be in the basic stuff. Once those are all painted up and the paint is dry, just go ahead and glue them onto the corners. You may have to take your X-Acto and wish that little spacer thing a little bit to make room for the ring. But just a bit of hot glue and stuff it on there. You do actually need to go kind of heavy on the hot glue here because you need this to stay. These are the connection points that are actually physically holding the thing up. Get them glued all the way around. And then we'll glue down these hands that are holding rings. If you want to see how these were done, there is a companion video for this video. The link's up in the top right there, where I did the 3D modeling of these. The studs on them for the bolts are just these little things for bejeweling your face. And we'll use a silver marker to kind of make those stand out a little bit. I just drop down some hot glue and stick them on. To hold the obelisk thing up off the ground where we want it, I took a little chunk of XPS and dug a hole out and split it in half so that I'll be able to remove it after this thing is chained into place. Just go ahead and connect a few lengths of chain on there, make sure it's all where you want it to go. I ended up making these chains way too long. I had to trim them back later. For something to attach the chains to the hand with, I ended up grabbing a couple of these nickel silver links out of my chainmail bag over there. They're pretty sturdy, probably a lot heavier than what you actually need for this, but they were the right size and they look cool, so really any kind of ring. You could make your own ring by wrapping like a coat hanger around a dowel. So I mean, that looks really cool being way high up in the air like that, and if I didn't have the size restriction, I probably actually would put it pretty high up. But because the restriction still's got to come down, so if you have done what I did, just go ahead and trim some links out of your chain. I ended up going with 13 links on each of these chains. Just figure out what's going to work best for you. Once you got it all sorted out, your chains are the same length, everything's good to go. Just go ahead and put the base ring, the big one there, in the middle of your little hand holder deals. I can put those on Thingiverse too, actually, if you guys want those hands. And then just super glue it in place. To super glue the chain, make it nice and stiff, just put a bunch of glue on it, really. I mean, there's not any kind of science to it. Just try not to glue the chain to your foam block. If you get a bunch of glue inside the links and it looks weird, you can poke it out with a toothpick. And then once you've gotten it all glued up how you want, go ahead and douse it in baking soda. That'll turn all of that wet glue into concrete. Once you are sure that it's all nice and solidified, you can go ahead and pull your support block away. It should still actually be a little bit malleable at this point, so if it's tilted like this, you still have about 5 minutes to go ahead and straighten it out. As you can see, there's no trick, there's nothing under there. To make those baking soda super glue blobs blend in, I'm just going to use a bunch of Citadel shaders. I put some of this green on there, kind of looks like copper corrosion really, but I mean, it works. Then a bit of sepia or sepia, whatever, the brown stuff. I just kind of put that all over, a little blotchy to add to the brown that was already sprayed on there. Then for black washing, I'm actually going to put a little bit of my wash into the airbrush and spray it where I want it. That'll give you more of a faded sort of thing. You don't have any like big paintbrush smears. I ended up putting it basically all over, pretty heavily on the chains, and anything that seemed too bright, I just gave that a little bit of spray to kind of calm it down. And there you go. That's the end result. It's actually floating there. I mean, there's nothing under it. It's holding up by the chain, so it looks like it's floating. Of course, you guys know the drill. If you want to support the channel, you can do that over on Patreon. I've got the Amazon affiliate links on my website where I've got like the stuff for bejeweling your face. Don't forget that I'm pretty active on 2 different Discords if you want to jump on one of those, either the Tabletop Crafters United or the Dungeoneers. You can find me over there. But of course, as always, thank you for watching, everybody. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.